When Charles Darwin published his book On the Origin of Species in 1859, the theory of evolution became mainstream. This dangerous ideology would end up having a catastrophic impact on the world.
Darwin didn't invent the idea of evolution, obviously. I mean, the Greeks believed in evolution. He just popularized a particular view of evolution that gave people what they thought was a scientific justification for rejecting God and explaining everything by natural processes. I mean, if you read his letters and you read his books, he was really out to try to explain life by natural processes. He was really out to try to get rid of this idea that God created anything.
Evolution is an idea, and a lot of people are taught that it's science and it's part of the scientific method, but it's an idea, it's an ideology. And those who embrace this ideology under the guise of science is false. It's a myth.
Of course, Darwin set forth the idea that we evolved, we weren't created. And this was huge. The implications, and I know we're talking about things that happened more than a century ago, but the implications for academics, politics, culture, even for religion, the implications are huge.
We've taken God out of the equation. When God goes out of the equation, morality goes out of the equation. The law goes out of the equation.
The key difference between creationism and evolution is the idea of order and design. Does life have meaning and purpose, or is it simply random occurrences, devoid of any true meaning?
God is a God of order. He created an orderly universe. Science supports this kind of universe of law. Once we dismantle that, we take it away, then we have chaos, and everything goes.
You know, I have 5 children. One of the things we talk about, most people, when you ask them what's 2 plus 2, they'll say 4, right? But they won't ask this additional question: why does 2 plus 2 equal 4? And if 2 plus 2 equals 4, will it always equal 4? And the point I'm getting at is that in order for disciplines like mathematics and science to work, they require constancy and order. You can't get a consistent mathematical equation and a consistent scientific formula without there being a designed universe.
Darwin's atheistic worldview began to take root in many aspects of society, leading to the 1962 United States Supreme Court ruling, which banned prayer in public schools.
And you know, when our public schools have, by and large, thrown God out, the Bible out, prayer out, they say they've thrown religion out, but they haven't. They threw Christianity out and have replaced it with the religion of naturalism. Because what Darwinian evolution is all about is ultimately naturalism, and naturalism is atheism. And that's what's really happened.
The children go to school and they're not taught the truth, they're not taught biblical standards, and so they're confused and they try to seek out sexual practices as young children, or they try to change their gender or their identity, or they go into drugs or alcohol, and then into adults. People are constantly trying to find meaning and purpose because there's an emptiness in their soul because they don't take the truth of the Word of God.
When generations of children are taught that the Bible is not the absolute authority and that man determines truth, then anything goes.
If you're taught that, no, man determines truth, then ultimately you can say, I can define gender any way I want. Because a man determines truth, therefore everything's subjective, therefore I'll define it this way. That means somebody else could define it that way, someone else will define it that way. And then you start to realize it's not just transgender, there's like, how many different genders now? It's whatever anyone wants to define. A lot of people have the idea that, oh, we got all these problems in the culture. There's the gender problem, there's the gay marriage problem, there's the racism problem, we have, LGBT, we got all these different problems, but that's not true. They're all one problem. They're all symptoms of the one problem. If we don't understand they're all the same problem, we'll never be able to deal with them. The problem is, when you build your thinking on man's word, it's like Judges 21:25. When there's no king to tell them what to do, no absolute authority, they do what is right in their own eyes.
Children at the youngest of ages are being indoctrinated with atheistic ideologies like gender identity.
They're trying to steal our children, corrupt our children, and if you look at their agenda, it doesn't respect life at any stage, and certainly not the lives of children.
Public education is not neutral. And that's one of the big things that people need to understand. For a lot of people, they think, oh, you know, they've thrown God out, the Bible out, prayer out, creation out. Now they're neutral. No, now they're imposing upon your children a religion. It's a religion of naturalism, which is atheism. That's what's really happening.
Our children are being targeted all the way down to the kindergarten level with new radical sex ed curriculum materials that are now mandatory in every public school and charter school in the state of California, and many school districts in the Midwest have actually been convinced to adopt it as well.
The LGBT caucuses and political movements are so ingrained in the school systems from university all the way down to preschool and elementaries now that they've created massive educational programs being pushed, by the way, by the Biden administration currently and minions below, to teach children with publications and illustrated examples of the most personal things about sex acts like masturbation. They're beginning to teach 5-year-olds now in the school systems.
With morality seemingly thrown out the window, we've also seen a huge spike in divorce, abortions, drug overdoses, suicides, and murders. But should any of this surprise us? Out of Darwin's teachings flow many dark and sinister worldviews.
The fact is, what Darwin did is give people license to do whatever they wanted to do because we came up through the animal world. But when we begin to act like animals, and a man takes a gun and shoots a whole lot of students in a school, suddenly, how could this happen?
One of the things that Darwinianism did in its early days was it had a whole series of sort of pseudo-scientific offshoots. Francis Galton, who was a nephew of Charles Darwin, was in fact the founder of eugenics. Eugenics took root though because it had a kind of social Darwinist aspect to it. How do we reshape society? How do we build a better future? How can we have Tomorrowland? A perfect world with a perfectly healthy and very scientific and mindful citizenry. That was the goal of eugenics. And essentially, Planned Parenthood became the foot soldiers of the eugenics movement.
Margaret Sanger was the founder of Planned Parenthood.
When we look at Margaret Sanger, we see that she was a follower of Darwinian evolution. In America, we had a very popular eugenics movement in the early 1900s. And many of the intellectuals, rich, well-to-do people, were involved in this kind of better man. Margaret Sanger was right in the middle of it. And the idea of a better man was evolutionary from its very beginning. That Darwin's evolutionary tree existed and that there were lower forms, and those lower forms, the lower form of man.
It's vital to understand the dangers young people are facing with this radical atheistic ideology coming at them on all fronts.
Many young people, even raised in a Christian home, maybe they made a profession of faith, but they go away to college and they're kind of blindsided by things like relativism, Darwinian evolution, materialism, where they sit under professors that almost make it their business to shatter the faith of young people. That's intellectual skepticism.
When you take generations of kids through an education system and you teach them there's no God, and you teach Darwinian evolution, naturalism as fact, what's going to happen is the coming generations are going to become more consistent with what they believe, and they're going to do what is right in their own eyes. And you're going to see moral relativism permeate the culture.